Ukrainian Special Operations Forces destroyed a Russian S-400 Triumph missile launcher and an ammunition depot. According to Ukrainian military sources, the successful mission was carried out in temporarily occupied Crimea. The final phase of the operation took place back in early October, but the information was withheld for operational security reasons. SSO fighters received intelligence about the location of a large ammunition depot belonging to Russia's 18th Army in the village of Udaknoye, near Simferopol. And on the night of October 6th, they destroyed the facility using drones.
On that same day, Special Operations Forces units destroyed a mobile S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile launcher. The air defense facility was located in the village of Uyutnoye near Yevpatoria. The S-400 is designed to detect and engage aerial targets at long range. The enemy also uses this system to strike Ukrainian territory. And the message from the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces on Telegram.
The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces counted 116 battles along the entire front line today. The enemy was most active in assault operations in the Sloviansk, southern Slobozhansky, and Konstantinivka directions. Are the Russians who entered Pokrovsk able to hold their positions? And what tactics is the Russian army trying to use to advance in the Orikhiv direction? We'll tell you in the next segment.
Since the beginning of the day, the General Staff of Ukraine has counted 116 battles along the entire front line. In the Sloviansk direction, the Russians tried to storm Ukrainian positions 10 times. Ukrainian defenders repelled 9 more attacks in the southern Slobozhansky sector of the front. And in the Konstantinivka direction, the Russian army tried 8 times to break through the defenses near 3 settlements. The POKROVSK direction remains one of the most intense. Just today, 57 battles took place there. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces notes that Russian troops continue their attempts to capture Pokrovsk and create conditions to encircle Pokrovsk together with the Mirnohrad agglomeration.
Novopavlivka in the south, the north, Lyman, Konstantinivka, Kupiansk, Vovchansk, the Kharkiv direction. There too, the enemy is trying to become more active in order to stretch our forces and prevent us from concentrating our reserves. To defend Pokrovsk, in order to maintain this balance of forces. The fact that Pokrovsk has turned into yet another meat grinder for the Russian occupiers is undeniable. And in general, no one is hiding the fact that the concept, not the strategy, of Ukraine's defense forces is to do everything possible to wear down the enemy's offensive potential.
The Russian plans to capture Pokrovsk have been in the works for over a year, according to the Ukrainian military command. To achieve this, the enemy has created a certain advantage in manpower and equipment in this direction. Russian units have partially entered the southern districts of Pokrovsk and are trying to gain a foothold there in order to use these positions for further advances.
Today, the city of Pokrovsk is in many ways a continuous and very large. The gray zone, like the entire Pokrovsk-Nizhegorod agglomeration, is such that Ukrainian defenders and Russian occupiers can be just 10 to 15 meters apart in different neighborhoods. Nevertheless, there is also another possible scenario. I'm not saying that the city of Pokrovsk can be fully retaken today or even tomorrow, but these, let's say, notes of optimism, they are still there. As I already mentioned, in particular, our special forces have been at work. The special forces are continuing this operation, and it's too early to draw any conclusions.
The Russian army is trying to advance unnoticed in the Orikhiv direction. In the southern defense forces, they say the Russians are using a tried-and-true tactic and instead of open assaults are infiltrating in small groups. In particular, taking advantage of the difficult terrain, they are trying to bypass Ukrainian positions and get into the rear.
The enemy's movement, which originates from Kamyanske, if you carefully look at the map, is directed towards the settlements of Stepnohirsk, Primorske, and also Plavny. Plavny in particular means that it borders what remains of the sea, which, well, they believe they control the situation there. However, a few days ago, Ukrainian Defense Force units managed to carry out successful raids, such combat operations, to stop some advances, and to change the situation in their favor.
Another 1,190 Russian occupiers were eliminated by Ukrainian Defense Forces on the front line over the past day. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total combat losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion have already exceeded 1,150,000 soldiers. In addition, yesterday 1 Russian armored vehicle, 20 artillery systems, 3 multiple rocket launchers, 1 air defense system, 250 operational tactical UAVs, and 72 vehicles were destroyed.
Thanks to the efforts of the airborne assault troops, so far, the Pokrovsk direction is still holding. The Dobropilya operation, as well as Donetsk, Kharkiv regions and southern Ukraine, are holding their ground. With these words, the President of Ukraine congratulated the soldiers on their professional holiday, the Day of the Air Assault Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the fighters for their service, noting the courage, strength, and dedication of the paratroopers, and also presented state awards to the best among them.
Today is an important day, a professional holiday for a significant part of our defense forces, the Day of our Air Assault Forces. These are warriors without whom truly strong Ukrainian achievements would not be possible, and in every truly hot spot on the front, our paratroopers are fighting alongside our other soldiers. I want to thank you, we are proud of you, and we always honor Ukrainian warriors. It was an honor for me to present you with awards today. Thank you.
Together they learned to carry out combat missions under fire, under attacks from KBs and FPV drones. Our next story is about the mortar crews of the National Guard of Ukraine. How their rotations go on the northern Slobozansky direction of the front. A report by Natalia Belokudria.
Yegor is 29 years old and he has been at the front for 4 years. He did his compulsory service in the Spartak brigade. That's where he was when Russia launched its full-scale invasion. At first he was an infantryman, went through the entire Kharkiv region and took part in battles in Klishchivka, Soledar and Bakhmut. Over a year ago, he transferred to the Sidian brigade, where he became the commander of a mortar crew. Now he covers his comrades.
I was in the infantry, I know what that's like. I take this very seriously, aiming and everything else. I'm the crew commander, but I also run out and help the guys too. I don't just sit there.
Reach the positions at maximum speed and deliver precise fire on the enemy. According to Yegor, now, because of Russian drones, logistics takes up the lion's share of their work, while actually preparing the weapon on the front line and firing takes just a few minutes.
It depends on the situation, on what's happening with the drones. Sometimes it can be done in a minute, in 30 seconds, or it might take up to 5 minutes to aim. This is a sight for the mortar. This is a sight for the mortar. With its help, we aim at the target.
39-year-old Anton, callsign Granata, has thoroughly studied the Soviet-style mortar. He knows all its intricacies, even though before the full-scale war he was far from military affairs. He worked at a meat processing plant in Kharkiv. He says he came to the military enlistment office voluntarily in February 2022 but was turned away. He tried again, and in May 2022 he joined the mortar platoon of the National Guard of Ukraine.
I didn't want to give up my home, Mom. And so that's how it turned out.
Anton defended the Kharkiv, Donetsk and Luhansk regions. He has dozens of destroyed targets to his name. What the Guardsman is most proud of is the armored vehicles of the Russian army that he helped put out of action.
A tank rolled out to the position. We hit it a little, knocked off its track. But then the others finished it off.
Now Igor and Anton are serving together in the North Slobozansky direction. They are defending Kharkiv and the region. The guys have medals and badges for their valiant service for the defense of Ukraine and for the defense of Kharkiv. From the very first days of the fighting, they proved themselves to be brave warriors.
The guys are doing their job. The guys are doing their job excellently. I want to say that all the tasks we set, they carry out, and they do it very well. They keep working no matter what happens. They dig under tarps, they dig at night, they camouflage themselves. They set up a position the very next day, and now they're making a second one.
Both National Guardsmen have just come out of combat positions. They have a few days to rest and spend time with their loved ones. After that, it's back to the front lines and service on the border of Kharkiv region. Natalia Belokudr and Andrei Domovoy from Kharkiv region reporting for Freedom TV channel.
The Netherlands will increase pressure on Putin to make him immediately stop his aggressive war. This is how the Dutch Foreign Minister, David Van Wiel, commented on yet another Russian attack on Ukrainian cities and the killing of civilians. He emphasized that his country will continue to support Ukraine. Peace for Ukraine must be just and come with security guarantees. This was stated by Austria's Foreign Minister BTM Mael-Reisinger in her address to the participants of the 29th European Forum in Vienna. She stressed that Europe must take on new responsibility for security, stability, and the future.
Russia's war of aggression has fundamentally changed Europe. It has been more than 1,200 days of suffering and death in Ukraine. It is time to stop the killing, which is why Russia must come to the negotiating table. Peace, of course, must be comprehensive, just, and sustainable, backed by strong security guarantees. There can be no peace in Ukraine without Ukraine, and there can be no security in Europe without Europeans.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte criticized Putin's reckless nuclear rhetoric and called on allies to take more decisive action against it. Rutte warned the Kremlin leader that a nuclear war cannot be won, and emphasized that NATO intends to further strengthen its nuclear capabilities in the future, primarily to deter the Russian Federation.
When Russia resorts to dangerous and reckless nuclear rhetoric, our people should know that there is no reason to panic, because NATO possesses a powerful nuclear deterrent to maintain peace. NATO's nuclear deterrence is the highest guarantee of our security. It is important that it remains reliable, safe, and effective. And Putin must know that a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, in an interview with Welt am Sonntag.
Pyongyang will act more aggressively in response to talks between Seoul and Washington. This was stated by North Korea's Minister of Defense. He sharply criticized the arrival of a U.S. nuclear aircraft carrier in the South Korean port of Busan, which, according to the minister, has heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula. Let me remind you, the day before, North Korea launched a ballistic missile from its west coast toward the sea. Japan and South Korea have stated that they are monitoring the situation. The United States has exempted Hungary from sanctions for purchasing Russian energy resources. This was reported by Reuters, citing a White House representative. The decision was made following yesterday's meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The exemption from restrictions will be in effect for 1 year. A White House representative added that Hungary has also committed to purchasing liquefied natural gas from the United States under contracts worth about $600 million. The European Union is preparing its 20th package of sanctions against Russia. Its main targets will be the financial and energy sectors of the aggressor country, stated the Lithuanian Minister of Finance and the European Commissioner for Financial Services at a press conference in Vilnius. EU representatives emphasized that the EU will work with third countries to prevent circumvention of the restrictions. At the end of October, the EU agreed on another package of sanctions, the 19th already, but it is necessary to further intensify the pressure. That is why we must already begin a serious discussion about the next sanctions package. We are monitoring the situation, and many of those who advocate circumventing the sanctions will be included in our future packages. As part of the 20th package, Belarus will also be subject to restrictions. Russia continues to kill Ukrainian civilians, while Belarus is increasingly involved in hybrid provocations against Lithuania. Europe's response must be more decisive. It is necessary to prepare a new 20th package of sanctions as soon as possible, including additional restrictions in the energy and financial sectors. Kristupas Vaitkūnas, Minister of Finance of Lithuania. Due to U.S. sanctions, the network of gas stations owned by the Russian company Lukoil is ceasing operations in Finland. Technically, it still has time until November 21st. This is the deadline given by the American authorities to terminate contracts with the sanctioned company. However, the fuel supplier and banks have already suspended cooperation with the gas stations.